by the title of this story, I am finally doing my labor and delivery story for you guys. If you guys watch my videos, you see that on July 26th, I went in for my 40-week doctor appointment. I was actually 40 weeks and 2 days. I was 2 days overdue with this pregnancy, which is the first time ever. My first 2 pregnancies, I had my girls early. With my son, which was my 3rd pregnancy, I had him a day before his due date. And with Nina here, I had her 2 days after my due date. So this pregnancy was very rough on me. This is the first time that I've ever been sick, and I was late. So this was definitely the hardest pregnancy of all my pregnancies, but it was definitely worth it. She is happy and healthy, and she's here with us now, and she's just the best baby ever. So that day I was doing a vlog. I was going in for my 40-week doctor appointment, thinking that I was going to be in and out, thinking I was going to be leaving with an induction date, and really that's it. I was just expecting to get checked, and they would tell me how many centimeters dilated I am, and we would do all that in a membrane sweep, which all of that did happen. So I went into the doctor's office. They checked me. They told me I was 4 centimeters dilated. Then another doctor came in and told me I was only 2 centimeters dilated. So each of those doctors did a membrane sweep. The second one was a lot more intense and it hurt more, and I left the office feeling more intense contractions. So they did something. So basically, in the OBGYN office that day, long story short, I went for my 40-week appointment. I told them how I was feeling the night before, throwing up, sick, felt like I had an extreme stomach flu. They did my Group B strep test. They checked and told me I was 4 centimeters dilated. Then the other doctor told me I was 2 centimeters dilated. Then I spoke to the head doctor, told her everything that I told the previous doctor, which I think was just like a doctor in training. But the head doctor came in, I told her everything. She checked me. That's the one that told me I was only 2 centimeters dilated and not 4. And she performed a membrane sweep as well as the doctor before, which, like I said, this one was more intense and more whatever. It hurt a lot more. But she was the one that made the decision for me to go up to labor and delivery so I could be monitored that day. So that is how I ended up in labor and delivery that day at my appointment in the first place, to be monitored. She asked if I was feeling baby move and everything. I said I was, not as much, because I guess she's getting bigger, and they said no, you should not feel decreased movement, which I thought was normal because I felt decreased movement with all 3 of my other pregnancies, and I just assumed that it was because they got bigger in the end and they had less room. She said that it's a concern if you feel your baby move less and you have the symptoms that I was having the night before. So that's why she sent me upstairs to be monitored, and they would make the decision of what's going to happen next after they monitor me for a while, I guess. So I get up to labor and delivery. I talk to the secretary. I sign in and everything. She tells me to take a seat over there. So I go take a seat, and she calls me back up. I fill out a paper. I forget what the paper was, but I filled out a paper with all of my basic information on it. She gave me a wristband, and she told me that I'm being admitted. I'm not leaving until I have a baby. And I was like, what? Really? I did not expect that. I thought I was coming up here to be monitored. She said that that's what was in the notes in the computer, and that's what the doctor in the back said that she had just talked to. So I guess the doctors downstairs had talked to the doctors up in labor and delivery, and they decided on inducing me. I guess since I was already overdue, and the decreased movement and how sick I was and everything together, they decided that they were just going to induce me. So I went back, and they took me to my labor and delivery room, and the nurse that took me back there, I asked her if she knew anything about me, like what was going to happen or what was going on. She said she didn't. She was just taking me in my room and putting my information in the computer, and that the next nurse or doctor that came in to see me would know more. So she did that, and I waited for them to come in. I did speak to a nurse. She introduced herself and said that she was going to be my nurse for the night until the next shift. And I asked her if she knew what was going on, and she said that I was sent there for the symptoms I was having: reduced movement, I was overdue, and a few other things. And she asked if that was all correct, and I said yes. And she said, okay, we're having a baby today. She said, we're going to start you on some IVs. She asked about my group B strep, and I said I had just had it done downstairs at the outpatient clinic, and she said that they were going to perform another one there, but in the meantime they were going to hook me up to, I think it was penicillin, along with saline solution and Pitocin when I'm settled in and everything, just as a precaution in case I was group B strep positive, which I never had been in any of my pregnancies, so I had a feeling I wasn't going to be this time. So I was not positive, just that like I did not find that out until later on. So the next nurse comes in, hooks me up to my IVs, saline water, the penicillin, and the Pitocin, the lowest dose of Pitocin, which is used to induce you and used to start contractions. And after a little while, they will raise your dosage so the contractions come faster and more intense. So they started me out on the lowest dose, and I was in there for a few hours. They did their, routines in and out of the room and everything, checking on me, but I was there to have a baby, which was amazing. I wasn't expecting it. I was excited. I was nervous. It kind of just hit me in the face because I was just expecting to go to my doctor's appointment and, like I said, go home with an induction date, not go to the hospital for my appointment and be induced, which I was fine with because going overdue really does scare me. I've heard stories of women being overdue and their babies passing away and just the cord getting tied around their neck, and just I've heard of things happening when they are overdue, and that scares the crap out of me because, as you guys know, I have anxiety horribly. So I just wanted my baby out while she was healthy. So a few hours later, they come in and check me. I'm only like 3 centimeters dilated, not enough dilated for them to break my water, they said. So they raised my Pitocin to the next higher level. So they did that, and my contractions were coming more often and more intense. They really hurt. I was crying. I was trying to hold off the epidural as long as possible because I hate the epidural. Everything about it scares me, but I do need it because the pain from the contractions raise my blood pressure and makes my anxiety go sky high, and I just pretty much lose control, and I just can't deal at all with the pain. A contraction is one of the most painful things I've ever felt in my life. And the weird thing about them is you can be in labor, not having a contraction, have absolutely no pain, talking, laughing, talking on the phone, on your phone, playing a game, in no pain at all. Then a contraction hits and boom, it's a whole different world. You are in so much pain, you just want to die. It is seriously the worst pain ever. I can't even describe it. So at that time, I am talking to my nurse, and I told her I'm going to need the epidural soon. I'm in so much pain, but I'm so afraid to get it. And she said to me, you can get it whenever you want. Just let me know when. If you're planning on getting the epidural, why wait any longer? You're going to be in pain and suffering. She could see how much pain I was in. So I asked her if, just like with all my other pregnancies, if I could have the main, like the head anesthesiologist, because I'm just so afraid of something going wrong and so afraid of the epidural that I just want somebody who knows what they're doing. And they've never had a problem with it. This time she said she'll see what she could do. So she went and talked to them, I guess, and came back on her next time that she had to come in and check our vitals and everything. And she said that she worked it out, and the main anesthesiologist could. Nina's right here with me, and she started to get fussy, so I had to give her a passy. But like I was saying, the nurse said that she did talk to the anesthesiologist, and it was no big deal. She could have the main one come in and do my epidural for me when I wanted it to. So about an hour goes by, and they're getting worse and worse, and I'm just torturing myself because I didn't get the epidural yet, just because I'm so afraid to get it every single time. So by this time, the nurses had switched shifts, and a new nurse had come in and introduced herself to me and all of that. I told her that I was ready to have my epidural. She knew I was scared to get it, and she said the same thing that the last nurse did: just let me know when you're ready to get it. I told her that I was ready for it, and then, like, boom, right away, the anesthesiologist was in my room. Usually they tell me that there's always a wait, so let them know ahead of time. They've said this with all 4 of my labors, but they have always been super quick to come in my room, so that's awesome. But a different nurse, like I said, I had a different nurse, and she did not know anything about me wanting, like, the head anesthesiologist. So this guy was a resident, and that is what I did not want, is a resident. That's what I got. He seemed like he knew what he was doing. When he came in, he talked to us for a while, and I just felt like he was, like, putting it off, kind of just, like, hesitating, and that's what was scaring me. Even though he sounded like he knew what he was doing, I was still worried. So we do everything we have to do. He starts working on my back, working on getting the epidural in, and he's taking forever. I don't remember it taking this long ever. So he's doing it back there, and I'm asking him, is it supposed to take this long? Am I supposed to be having these weird feelings over here and down my leg and over here? He said, yeah, that's actually really good that you're having that. And I'm just like, what? I've never had that before. So it was just really weird to me. So he said everything I was feeling was normal, and I just listened to him. I trusted him, but I just had a feeling that it just wasn't supposed to happen that way. He took a while to do it, a lot longer than any other anesthesiologist that I've ever had, and by the time he was done, I only felt it on my left side. It was not working on the right side. I still felt my contractions. It was like on the bottom half of my stomach. It wasn't enough to where it hurt badly, but it was still enough to where I was bothered by them and bothered by the fact that the epidural didn't work. So I was asking him if that's normal. He had me roll over back and forth to kind of like even out the medicine in my body. Just doing a bunch of different things to try to make it work, and it just wasn't working. So he stayed over on the computer filling out things. He said he would stay in there with me for a little bit and see what we could do. If not, then they would have to re-administer the epidural, and I did not want to do that. I was praying that they did not have to put it back in, take it out and put it back in. Oh my goodness, I was scared. But they ended up not having to put it back in because the machine started going crazy while he's over there on the computer, like mine and the baby's vitals machines. So he comes over and looks at it, and I'm like, is everything okay? And he was like, yeah, everything's fine, but kind of just like unsure. And he went back over to the computer, and the machines are still going off, going crazy. So he called the nurse in, my nurse, and she came in and she looked at them, and she went on the computer for a second, and she looked back at the computer, and she was just really worried. I could tell she was really worried. So she called another nurse in, and she came in and looked at them, or maybe she was a doctor, I'm not really sure, because I was kind of like freaking out over the whole epidural thing going on right now, and then the machine's going crazy. I know when something is going wrong, that like that sound of the machine, it just doesn't sound right. So they're going off, and sirens, well, not sirens, it's not a siren, but there was like an emergency sound in my room. Something went off because the machines were going off. And by that time, a whole bunch of nurses and doctors came piling into my room, and I was like, what is going on right now? I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I was just so scared. I was in there by myself, and the midwife that had been coming in and out of my room that introduced herself to me, and she was going to be the one delivering my baby. She was like the best person ever. She helped me through the worst times of my anxiety throughout the whole thing. She calmed me down. She was just always had a smile on her face. She was so passionate and just so sweet. And she was the one that delivered my baby. I didn't have a midwife that whole time, but they have midwives at the hospital. I go to like an outpatient office, so you kind of just get whichever doctor from the office that you're going. It could be any of those doctors. But she ended up coming, and I've never met her before or anything, but I was so glad that I did have her because she was awesome. So she comes in, and she could tell by my face that I was just so freaked out and so scared. So she right away starts calming me down, saying everything's going to be fine. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, well, the baby's heart rate just dropped a little bit. And I was like, is she okay? Is everything going to be fine? And she said most likely it was from the epidural, which caused my blood pressure to go super low, which was low already. I always have low blood pressure, and when I'm pregnant, it's like super low. So I could only imagine what it dropped to, but it caused the baby's heart rate to go from the 150s to only 60s. So Nina's heart rate was super, super low, in the low 60s, which is awful, scary for a baby, an unborn baby. So they, like I said, they all come piling in. They're looking at the machines, the screens, they're rummaging around. They're bringing in like carts of things like medications and whatnot. I don't really know exactly what was on the cart because I was just freaking out, but I know that they were taking things off of it. They were putting medicine into my IV, and I was asking them what it is, and they said that it's blood pressure medicine. It was going to make my blood pressure go back up because it had dropped so low, which hopefully will make the baby's heart rate go back up. And I was like, well, I have really bad anxiety. Is this going to make it worse? Just so I can prepare myself. Like, is it going to make my heart race? Is it going to make me feel weird? And the guy that was doing it's like, no, none of that. Everything's fine. So he does it. And I started to feel like really anxious. And my heart started to just go crazy. And I'm like, it's just your anxiety. It's just, I'm so afraid of any medication. Most likely, any medication I take, whether it causes anxiety or does this to you or that to you, whatnot, I get anxiety from it, from any medication. So he puts it in my IV, and automatically I start panicking. I'm like, it's your anxiety, just ignore it. So all the doctors and everyone's staring at the machines, and their faces are white, they're pale, they look like they had just seen a ghost, and you can tell how scared they are. There's other doctors rummaging around and trying to find things, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, is she going to be okay? I'm crying, I'm shaking. So they put an oxygen mask on my face. They said it's going to help the baby. It didn't help, so they gave me more medication in my IV, and by that time, I'm like shaking, I'm panicking. I'm like, I know it's the medicine that's doing this to me. So I asked them, I was like, is the medication making my heart race? Because my heart is going so fast. I know the difference between anxiety and what if something is doing that to me. I'm like, my heart feels like it's going to pop out of my chest, and I'm scared right now. And I was like, what is my heart rate right now? And they didn't want to tell me, but the midwife was like, it's up in the 200s. And I was like, in the 200s? It's like, oh my gosh. And she's like, well, the medication had adrenaline in it. It's short acting. You'll be fine in no time. Everything's going to be fine. She's just trying to calm me down the whole time. So another nurse comes over. She puts something else in my IV, and she's like shaking so bad that she dropped the first tube, and she had to go back on the cart that they had a bunch of things on and get another tube and put it in my IV since they couldn't pick it up off the floor and use it. But she's like shaking so bad while she's doing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is serious. Like, I'm terrified. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my baby because her heart rate's dropping at such a quick rate. By this time, they had already shut off the Pitocin. The Pitocin was just making the contractions come so fast and so hard that Nina was getting stressed out, which could have been another cause. I guess with the Pitocin, the epidural, my heart rate, or not my heart rate, my blood pressure dropping super low. All of that together was putting her under stress, and it was dropping her heart rate as well. So by this time, they had put an internal fetal monitor on the baby, monitoring her heart rate and everything, and it was still super low. So of course they're still freaking out. This seemed like it went on for an hour, but obviously it didn't, because they wouldn't let that happen. They would do an emergency C-section before it went on for any longer. So that's another fear of mine that I was freaking out about, having a C-section. I did not want a C-section. That was one of my worst fears for every pregnancy of mine, is having to get an emergency C-section. So of course that's adding to my anxiety, and they're telling, I still have the epidural in. By this time it worked. So they're telling me that now I need to get up on my hands and knees on the bed, since the medication wasn't working, the oxygen wasn't working, the other medication they had given me wasn't working. They said sometimes the baby's not in the right position, she doesn't like where she's at. So they had me turn onto my hands and knees on the hospital bed, not being able to feel any part of my lower half of my body. But there was something in me that just did it. I knew I had to do it for my baby. I had to do it so she would be okay. I don't know how I did it, not being able to feel my legs, but I was on my hands and knees on that hospital bed for my baby, so her heart rate would hopefully go back up to normal. So I'm on my hands and knees with the oxygen mask after they just gave me all of that medication. They took me off the Pitocin, and within a few minutes, my vitals started to stabilize. Nina's vitals, her heart rate started to stabilize, and before I knew it, well, not really before I knew it, it seemed like forever, but eventually we were okay. We were way better than we just had been. So at that time, the midwife asked me how I feel, and I told her that I think I need to push. I didn't feel it like so intense as I did with my other children, but I was like, I feel like I have to push. And she asked me if I wanted her to check me again. Hold on one second. So like I was saying, she asked me if I wanted her to check me, and I said yes, sure, why not. So she checked me, and I was 10 centimeters dilated. So I basically, before all this happened, I was only 5 centimeters, between a 5 and a 6 centimeters dilated. All of this happened. Everything was a blur to me. I'm sure I left out so much just because it was like a blur. I'm surprised that I remembered this much and was able to tell you guys just sitting here and thinking back. I didn't write anything down. I just tried to remember what I could to tell you guys. But I am definitely surprised that I remembered as much as I did. But like I was saying, I went from a 5 to a 6 centimeters dilated to a 10, and probably, I don't even know the time frame that all of that happened, but it was so fast. I was so shocked that she's like, it's go time, like you're ready to push. So I want to say like 20 minutes maybe. I went from a 5 to a 10. So I was like, what? I'm ready to push? Really? I hadn't even have time to calm down. My heart was still racing, but it wasn't in the 200s anymore. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't take a deep breath. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I have not had time to calm down from all of that had just happened, and of course having anxiety. Everyone in the room knew I had anxiety. By this time, all of the doctors and nurses, they were slowly piling out of the room, which was fantastic, because that meant that me and Nina were okay now. So that was a really good sign, which relaxed me a lot, and I think that's what gave me the motivation to push. So a few pushes later, after some practice pushes, which I didn't get through the practice pushes, that's what made me think that I wasn't going to be able to do it, because I felt like I couldn't. But once I knew I had to, I did. And she was born happy and healthy, crying, with a good set of lungs on her. 6 pounds, 14 ounces, 20 inches long. It was 11:44 p.m. And she was there, and it was amazing. She was healthy, I was healthy, and we had just been through a very traumatic experience. One of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I thought I was going to lose my baby. Of course, the anxiety in me, but that added with everything that was going on, the doctors' faces and how they were rushing and shaking, and all of these doctors were in my room. Their faces, like, I can't even explain, their faces were like they had just seen a ghost when they were staring at the monitors with our vitals on them. They just looked so worried and so scared and rushing around, and like I said, the nurse was shaking while she was putting medicine in my IV. Super, super scary. But I'm so happy that Nina is here and she's fine. Once I had her and everything, they took out the epidural and they had me in the wheelchair to go upstairs. I was so nauseous. I had not eaten for 2 days because I was so sick and in so much pain. I still, to this day, can feel, ow, it hurts so bad, exactly where that epidural was. That never happened before. I had a horrible headache. I thought I had a spinal headache. I had anesthesia up there quite a few times to check me. They said it's not a spinal headache, it's not an epidural headache, it's none of that. I had everybody checking me because I seriously thought something was wrong with me. I'm a little over a month postpartum and I am still so nauseous every day. I wear my C-bands every day. I drink so much ginger ale every day. Chew spearmint gum, minty gum, anything that I can. I take my Prilosec to try to stop the nausea, and nothing helps. And I think it's still hormones leveling out, but I am still so nauseous. And it started from the second that I had her and they wheeled me up to my suite of the hospital where I was going to be staying. I only stayed for 2 nights and 3 days. They wanted me to stay an extra night because of my condition. Nina was in the nursery pretty much the whole time. All of my other children were never in the nursery. I would not let them go to the nursery. I would not do it. I lost sleep. I didn't sleep in the hospital the whole time with them because I did not want my kid leaving me. I have my kids with me 24/7. Nobody watches them except my mom. I just want my kids with me all the time. So for Nina being in the nursery pretty much the whole time I was in the hospital, you know that I was so sick and I was in so much pain. My neck was killing me. That's why I thought I had like a spinal headache, because my back and my neck, I could not get out of bed. I cried to walk from my bed to the shower because of my back and my neck. That could have been, like, my neck could have been from the trauma of everything that happened and everything, but still to this day I'm having headaches, nausea, exactly where the epidural was put in. I'm having horrible pain there. Just to walk, I feel like a stabbing pain right where that needle was in my back. So this experience for me made me, while I was like going to push her out right before that, I was like, I'm never having another baby again, just because of this experience. All of my other pregnancies and labor and deliveries, they went perfect. They were awesome. And this one was just a complete opposite. It was awful. So I'm just so thankful that Nina is here and she's safe. And I'm happy that I am alive, even though I'm in so much pain every day still. They say that it could take a few months, hopefully it doesn't, to get back to normal. Sometimes people never get back to normal pain-wise. Hopefully this nausea goes away. I don't know, but I'll definitely do an update for you guys on that in a few months, in a few weeks, if and when I start to feel better. But I don't think I left anything out. I'm just getting like anxious thinking about it. I probably did leave some things out. I don't know. It was, like I said, I tried to make a long story short, so I guess I did leave some things out. I don't know. But it was just a big blur at that point where I was, you know, about to have her, and it was one of the most terrifying times of my life when it should have been one of the most happiest times of my life. So right now we're fine. I'm thankful for it. And that was my labor and delivery video. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing my 1-month postpartum update soon, along with my bathroom cleaning routine video. I have a lot of different requests. There was another one too. I forget what it was, but I do have a list. I have a schedule of when I'm going to do everything. I just ordered a lighting set with like a backdrop and lights and the umbrellas and everything. I have that to come, so I'm going to be setting up like a little filming studio. So my channel is hopefully going to improve greatly within the next couple months. I'm really hoping for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, all of my new subscribers. I'm so thankful to have you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye. My hair is destroyed. I have not dyed it, and it looks horrible, so I apologize for that. I had Nina on July 26th, 2016. Bless you, babe. What a girl wants, what a girl needs, whatever makes me happy, set you free. And I'm thanking you for knowing exactly what a girl wants. Oh, you're so sweet.